Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone, I'm Bethan from Reforest Group, or you might have also seen our brands Reforest the Web and Reforest Hosting. We specialize in sustainable web services that we're basically on a mission to fight climate change through the power of business. So, we do sustainable web design, hosting, SEO, things like that, that are all run on green energy and plant trees so you can grow your business and not your carbon footprint. Our entire mission is it's around fighting climate change and being as sustainable as possible and helping as many businesses to do that as well. So yeah, I'm here to talk to you about green hosting today, and I apologize in advance. It's extremely ironic and frustrating that we're having Wi-Fi issues today. But if at any point I drop out, I will just come straight back. So just give me a second. Um, and also, I've never done a talk on this before. I've had a lot of conversations about it. So I apologize in advance if I seem like I'm reading something. I probably am. I've written some things down and I'll be going through that just to make sure that I'm giving you the best information and it can go as seamlessly as possible. So yeah, let's jump straight in. Um, I'll start with what is green hosting. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about green hosting, but for those who haven't or who want a recap, I'm going to start at the beginning. So if you didn't know, hosting is the process of renting server space to host your website and any files and data that are required. Like anything, hosting is powered by energy. Green hosting is hosting that is run on renewable energy with electricity that comes from green and eco-friendly sources such as solar, wind, and sometimes water as well. Green hosting is becoming a more talked about and important topic recently, with more businesses becoming aware of both climate change and how we could be contributing to it. Every time a website is loaded, it uses energy. This energy has to come from somewhere. Using green energy ensures that this comes from green and renewable sources. Green hosting is naturally run on renewables, but hosts often use energy-saving practices and techniques and other measures to enable them to be as efficient and sustainable as possible as well. Some hosts, like Reforest Hosting, plant trees as well. So now I want to talk to you about making that choice. If I asked you now to make a choice between renewable energy and fossil fuels, which would you choose? Just give me a little wave if you choose fossil fuels. And what about green energy? Well, the chances are, if you have a website, you've already made that choice. Whether you know it or not, you've already chosen to run your website on fossil fuels or green energy. It's so important for people to not only be aware of the options available, but that they also feel empowered to make a choice that aligns with their values and the values of their business. We recently had a client who moved their website to our hosting. They're a business that's entire existence was centers around sustainability, but they didn't realize that their previous host was using fossil fuels. Of course, when they found that out, they were able to make an informed decision, and now their website is using green hosting. And I absolutely love that example because it's just a great way of demonstrating that people they don't necessarily know that it's either green hosting or non-green hosting. It's like vegan food. We call it vegan food, but actually everything else is non-vegan food. So when you're confronted with that choice, a lot of people make the green choice and not realizing that they've already done that. So giving people an opportunity to align that with their values, a lot like what Jay does with his work, it's giving people that, like, empowering them to make that decision, and that's what I find exciting. So we're all becoming more aware of the power of how we spend our money. Each time we make a purchase, use a service or product, we're voting for the world that we want to see. Hosting is just another one of those votes, but there are only two choices: fossil fuels or green energy, and it's up to you to make that choice. So now we're going to talk about the impact of green hosting on the environment. It's easy to think of the internet as this invisible thing up in the cloud, but its impact is real. As the Green Web Foundation say, the internet is the world's largest coal-powered machine. Here's some stats for you. In 2022, the internet accounted for around 10% of global electricity consumption, and that's set to rise to a huge 20% in 2023. With that in mind, around 85% of the world's electricity is generated from non-renewable energy sources. The internet has a combined estimated carbon footprint of around 1 billion tonnes per year, which is 2% of total emissions and is equivalent of similar to that of the aviation industry. In 2018, statistics showed that if the internet was a country, it would be the 7th worst polluter in the entire world. The average website emits an average of 0.5 grams of CO2 with every site visit, which is 60 kilograms of CO2 per year for a website with 10,000 monthly page views. The internet is a rapidly growing field too, with an average of 380 new websites created every minute. Can you just imagine the impact of that? There are a lot of things you can do to help both yourself and your business to become more eco-friendly, and using green hosting is a really great option. As green hosting is using renewable energy, and in our case at Reforest Hosting, planting trees too, the impact it has on the environment is a significant factor as to why people choose this as their preferred option. By using green energy, the emissions of your website and its hosting are hugely reduced, with what energy is used coming from eco-friendly, sustainable, and renewable sources. By planting trees in a purposeful and responsible way, we can also scale the positive impacts that we have on the environment by investing in the regeneration, conservation, and protection of vital habitats around the world. We all know that climate change is impacting some of the most impoverished areas of the world the most. So using green hosting as an opportunity to leverage business to plant trees in those areas can help to greatly reduce the impact of natural disasters, as well as rebuilding ecosystems and sustainable social systems too. And I'll give you a few quick examples. Women creating sustainable livelihoods by selling seeds, creating more opportunities for independence and equality. Children are going back to school because the adults have reliable incomes, enough to be able to afford for members of the family to focus on education and not having to work instead. Now, looking at one of the places that we plant trees is Madagascar. Biodiversity is being protected. Madagascar is home to over 100,000 species that are not found anywhere else in the world. Mangroves planted in Madagascar help to reduce soil erosion due to their root systems, minimizing the risk of flooding and the effects of it too. Where trees are planted, there is often higher levels of precipitation and therefore less chance of drought, which reduces the vicious cycles of drought, crop failure, and poor quality soil, which impacts both humans and other wildlife. So now you know how green hosting can impact the environment. We'll look at how it can help your business. When you think about reducing your carbon footprint, whether that's your personal carbon footprint or that of your business, what do you think of? I'll give you a second. Often, it's recycling, reducing paper, or going entirely paperless. Obviously, using non-dairy milk will be a popular choice here too, but how your website is hosted might not be high on that list. And chances are, if you weren't here and listening to this, then hosting might be even further down the list for you. Using green hosting is not only great for the planet, but good for your business. Using a hosted on green energy badge could help to build rapport with eco-conscious customers and solidify your business's sustainability credibility. One of the biggest benefits of using a green web host is reducing the environmental impact your website has. Instead of using polluting fossil fuels, you will contribute to a cleaner internet, since the servers will be running on green and renewable energy using sources such as wind, solar, and water. Going green is becoming increasingly popular, and so it's also becoming important to users that websites are taking steps towards being more sustainable. As more people are becoming aware of how their actions are contributing to climate change, reassuring them that using your website is not having a negative impact could even mean that they spend more time scrolling your products and services. Of course, not everyone is aware of the impacts of digital sustainability, but more and more people are becoming aware, and we're really excited to help more people make that switch. Whether or not you want to promote the fact that your business is using green hosting, you can rest assured that you've made the most eco-friendly choice and are supporting a greener future. One barrier to being sustainable that I'd like to break down, and I'd love if you could too, is the idea that being green is only for those that want to shout about it or be overt in their values. I can't tell you how many times I've heard things like, "Have you seen this? I know you care about sustainability," or "You care about climate change and stuff like that, don't you?" Of course I do, and I think we all should. Whether your business is centered around sustainability or not, green hosting is a really powerful step that you can take to ensure that you're treading as lightly as possible on our planet. It's like vegan food. Non-vegans can eat it too. Just because you're not vegan doesn't mean you can't enjoy vegan food. Green hosting is for everyone. If you have a website, that's it. So how can you make a switch? Most green hosts offer some kind of free migration, meaning that they will transfer your website from your current hosting into theirs. So to conclude with that, I truly believe in the power of green hosting and the work that it does to help our planet, its people, and their businesses. And I know that was quite short, but I've covered all the main topics that I could, and I don't want to overload you, so I do welcome any questions for that.
Fabulous, thank you so much. So many, wow, shocking statistics there. Let me just take you off the spotlight and we can see if we have questions. Yeah, so many shocking statistics there from something that a lot of people just don't think about. Jay, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question?
No, it was a thumbs up actually. But,
oh, it was a thumbs up.
Yeah, no, it's just to say there's a lot of similarities between what I do and Bethan as well. It's just bringing these issues to the forefront, which people don't necessarily think about straight away. So I thought the talk was spot on, Bethan, considering it's the first one. It was really, really well paced and just the right amount of content. So yeah, well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important. It's interesting but also exciting to me that, like what you do, so many people just don't see the impact of what they're doing because it's kind of invisible. And people do think, I think it's terms like the cloud. People think that the internet's just this thing that because you can't see it, you just can't see the impact of it. And showing people that not only is it real, it is doing the environment damage, but that they have a chance to make a choice too is important.
I agree.
Yeah, so Jane said, how do you know if someone is using a fossil fuel option? Well, there are some web checkers online that if you put your website in, it will tell you whether or not you are using green energy. And also it will tell you not only if it's green energy or not, but the impact that your website's having as well. So how big the carbon footprint is for every view of that website. So I'll find a link and I'll drop it in the WhatsApp after.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Fabulous. That would be really great if you could put it in the LinkedIn and Facebook groups as well. We can,
or
if you share it with Jane, we can share it along with the recording as well, so that
it's a really good idea.
Get that out there. That's brilliant. It's a great idea.
I've got a question, if I can ask. Bethan, so I've got green hosting, but I've always wanted to know, do you have data centers, so do you use completely different data centers to other hosting companies? I mean, how does that work? Like, how do you know it's green?
So as far as I'm aware, no, they're the same, but I could be wrong. I'm just going to disclaim now, I'm not the technical person on our team, but no, I assume they're the same. And for us, the data centers and the server space and everything, it's literally just run on green energy. So similar to how you make a choice in your home to switch to a green tariff or fossil fuels, it's the same. So
right, okay, thank you.
That's interesting. So obviously we've had people talk previously about kind of reduction in website
functionality.
In speed, the functionality, that's the word. In being able to adapt the speed of things, reduce the images and that kind of thing. So is that something that people should still be doing in relation to the green hosting as well, or is that something that the green hosting kind of negates, that you don't need to do as much worrying about what's on your hosting because the impact is less anyway, or do they factor out each other?
So I would say from a sustainability point of view, more is always better. Well, technically less is better. So using energy saving practices and being as resource responsible as possible is always good, because just because you're not using fossil fuels, I think it's still important to be responsible. Obviously, you kind of do take away that guilt. You could use as much green energy as possible, but I guess until everything is run on that, it's probably still a good idea to be mindful of the consumption. And I think those things go hand in hand, which is obviously what we do a lot, is the website and the hosting goes together, so you can make sure the whole is like full spectrum green, but making sure that you're not using unnecessary amounts of energy it helps from a user point of view as well. If a website optimizes itself so that it's quick, it uses less energy, but it's also better for the user to not sit there and wait for these massive images to load.
Fabulous, that's great. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll just jump on with another one. I don't want to monopolize it.
Sorry,
Shabari,
I have a question. Thank you very much, Beth. That was really interesting. With my website, I'm finding that the more intricate, you know, say things that I do, like not intricate, but images. If I want like fancy stuff on my website, that tends to slow things down. And so, you know, for me, I want my website, you know, looking you know, eventually looking professional with like, yeah, and looking modern as well. At the moment, it's, you know, it's not really a modern looking website. But if I want all this like you know, sort of fancy stuff, is that going to slow, first of all, make it slower, and second of all, you know, when you have all these extra things, you know, wanted to make it look professional rather than simple, that's going to impact you know, the CO2 impact is going to be bigger. So how can I, you know, have a simple looking website that looks professional and minimal? I mean, that, you know, I kind of didn't want to go down that route of it looking minimal, but is that the best thing to do to have it well, you know, to save on CO2?
So some people would say yes, but I would actually say no. I think you don't have to compromise on the quality and the content of your website just to make it eco-friendly. So if you want these images and things on there, that's absolutely fine. You just need to make sure they're optimized, they're not bigger than they need to be. Sometimes we'll have people, and when I say bigger, I don't mean literally on the page. It's like if you've got something that's in pixels 800 by 800, you've uploaded something that's 1600 by 1600, it's just going to make it heavier than it needs to be. So just making sure that things are as they need to be rather than extra will help to speed that up a little bit, but without compromising that quality. And even things like you can have videos all over your website if you want, and I know that's the number one thing really that slows your website down. But it's little things like making sure that it's third-party hosted, so it's embedded on YouTube or Vimeo, something like that, so that it only plays when people click on it. Things like that. It's you still have everything you want, but you do it in a slightly different way. And so to answer your question, no, I don't think you need to compromise on any of that. You just need to do it in a more mindful and potentially sneaky way.
Thank you, Bethan. And so are there any like image minimizers? I don't know if you'd call them that, but any sort of like ways that I can use like image minimizers for the website, and do you know their names?
Yeah, I don't know them off by heart, but I will post that as well. I'm writing a little list of things that I'll share with you. So yeah, there are things that you upload your image and it will optimize it for you. You download it and just replace whatever it is with that one. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Bethan.
Fabulous. And this may have been partially answered in the previous question by Shabari, but Jane has asked, is green energy hosting able to cope with large websites?
Absolutely. Just exactly in the same way that I always compare it to your house, because I think it is kind of similar. You're making a decision to go from fossil fuels to green energy. So in your house, it can still cope. Like you wouldn't notice the difference at all. It's completely invisible, but the impact you're having is, well, it will be tangible eventually because of climate change. But yeah, it can absolutely cope.
Financially, is it more expensive to have green hosting versus fossil fuels or fueled at the moment, or are they quite balanced?
There are a lot of hosting companies out there. Some of them are really expensive because they come with that kind of green tax that I absolutely hate. It's like super trendy and it's just jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. Like, you know, and you go, like anything, you can have a more expensive option, but using Reforest hosting as an example, obviously, because I know it, we strive to be as affordable as possible because it's really important that everybody makes this swap. Whether you use us or somebody else, it's important that it's affordable and accessible to everyone, because being green isn't really a luxury, it's a necessity. So yeah, there are, you can pay as little or as much as you want.
Right. No, it's good.
Fabulous. Thank you. Jay has his hand up.
Yeah, it's a preloaded question because I know the answer because I've done it and it's very easy. But let's say someone wanted to got their website, they want to switch to you.
Mhm.
How easy is it, or how complex is it? Do they have to worry about like codes in the background, or is there any downtime, or do they just give you the information and you help them from there?
So thank
I
you.
haven't been
Yeah.
paid to say that, but I think it's important because you can think of hosting and downtimes and stuff
Yeah.
as a real complex process.
Yeah, so it seems really complicated, but no, like people like us, it's for free migration. So if you choose actually today, I want to make that decision, I want to swap, you give us the information, and at the time we'll ask you a couple of questions, things like, do you have any email addresses attached to that domain? Just because that makes it's not more difficult, but it's something that we need to know so we can factor that in, make sure we take everything across with us. But you give us all the information, we just sort it out for you. Downtime is always as minimal as possible. And I can't really give you a number because it depends on the website, often on what your current hosting's doing as well, but it's really not as complicated as it seems. Thank you.
Brilliant. That's great to hear as well. So the easier the better for anybody, I think. And one question from me, unless anyone else wants to jump in. So as you were saying before about you can pay as much or as little as you like, what differences, or are there any kind of red flags that you should be looking out for good green hosting companies in comparison to not? So just thinking back to the situation before that was highlighted around kind of the greenwashing of planting trees,
Yeah.
you know, and so how do we basically avoid the greenwashing that could potentially happen in green hosting?
So when I was checking all my stats yesterday, I went through and I was looking at what is the definition of green hosting, and I didn't realize, but there are actually a couple of different ways that people can be green hosting. And the one for me, and this is only my personal opinion, the only way a hosting company can be actually green is to be using renewable energy. So some hosts will say they're green and they'll be buying carbon offset things to like offset what the impact they're having. So I think the number one thing I would look out for is to make sure that they say they are run on renewable energy, to make sure that they are green. And the things like, if somebody says they plant trees, go on their website and make sure that you can verify how many they've planted, where they've been planted, and why they've been planted as well. Because like you said, it's important, when the goal isn't to plant trees, it's to grow forests, as Eden Reforestation say. Just planting a seed somewhere that's completely inappropriate isn't going to have the impact that we want it to have and that we need it to have. So making sure that basically just digging around a little bit to make sure that they can back themselves up with these claims.
Fabulous, that's great, thank you.